This is Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants, the show that helps HR experts build a predictable pipeline of premium paying clients without expensive ads, constant posting, or endless networking. I'm your host, Nick Paninsky, author of The Complete Guide to Building a 70k HR Consultancy and creator of the Client Control Method, helping HR professionals grow with clarity, confidence, and control. Let's get into today's episode. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants with me, Nick Paninsky. Today's episode, super fantastic. We have got Tom with us, Tom Vivace, and he is going to talk to us about colour profiling. It's a little bit different to normal episode because obviously normally I talk to you about marketing and sales. This episode is how you can provide an excellent service to your clients. So thank you for joining us, Tom.
No worries. Nice to be here, Nick.
Yeah, it's awesome because obviously we've met on LinkedIn recently, and now are we acquaintances or friends yet?
We are friends.
Oh, that makes me really happy. Yay. So we're friends and I love that, but you are not here to talk about our budding friendship. Tom, for those who don't know you, and who are you and what do you do?
So Tom, I work in the hospitality sector, or I have done all my career, predominantly in operations up until about 9 years ago when I took the plunge into the world of people. I started predominantly in L&D and then became a bit more of a generalist towards the last 4 years. Worked in the hospitality sector as a head of talent, a head of people, and then in summer I decided to transition and go it alone and set up Viva People, and we help small, medium businesses with their people strategy. We also do a lot on tech stack reviews and helping people find the right tech for their business. And then also Psychometrics, which we're talking about today.
Yes, love it. That's what we are talking about today, is some colour profiling. It's really, really interesting stuff because obviously we have done our colour profilings, which is really eye-opening and insightful. But let's start simple. What is colour profiling?
So I think when people hear the word psychometric, it sounds super scary, like you're
Psychopath.
doing some, you're doing some like test in a laboratory or what have you. But actually, a lot of you might have done a psychometric for a job interview or through a process, and therefore a lot of people think psychometrics is to do with recruitment. Some people might have done psychometrics as part of a development program. Psychometrics are used like throughout every industry. And I think the colour profiling specifically is a part of a psychometric tool that I would say is probably a little bit more, not necessarily light touch, but it focuses more on people's preferences, behavioural styles, and preferred communication. So it can be easily used at a more junior level, as well as, up to senior, but it's a lot more, it's a less barriered psychometric.
That's so interesting. So you think this is more focused, sorry, I'm going to go off script a little bit. You think this is more for junior roles? Because I tell you, when you and I went through my colour profile, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This will help people really understand who I am. And then because I've looked at your colour profiling, I get that level of insight into you that I wouldn't necessarily have got without looking at your colour profile, right? It would have taken a lot longer to get to know you. So for me, I don't see it as junior. I thought it was beneficial. I wanted to get my mum and dad in there and everyone important to me.
First of all, everyone wants to do a colour profiling one on their family or their partner when they do it their first time, because they're like, wow, like I could really, because colour profiling is all about, it's about self-development, a little bit of self-reflection. It's about learning about yourself a little bit more. And when it's in black and white in front of you, I suppose it challenges you a bit to kind of really internally look at yourself. And also it might write down a few things that you kind of know a little bit around your communication and behavioral style, but actually when it's confronted with you, you're like, okay, yeah, maybe, sometimes when I do get mad, I do go quite emotional, as an example. And I suppose going back to your other point, I wouldn't say it's necessarily for junior level. What I mean is that it's good for all levels. So like some psychometrics can be quite lengthy, take a long time to complete. The reports are not very easy to read. And I suppose with color profiling, especially the profiles that we use for the color code, is they're just easy for everyone to interpret. So they're good for all levels. But yeah, we use them from junior kind of development all the way to team communication at C-suite level.
Yes. Yeah. I remember, because obviously we started talking, I remember talking to somebody at Run Club a long time ago now, but she was talking about how she'd done colour profiling and it was on the bottom of their emails, their email signature, like, hi, I'm Mandy, I'm a red stroke yellow or whatever it was. And then obviously everyone in the organisation knew, because of that, what was actually happening beneath the surface, right?
Yeah, no, a lot of companies do that. Actually, when you complete our report as well, you also get that little logo that you can put and embed onto your emails. And actually, in office scenarios, I've seen a lot of scenarios where people have had Lego blocks on top of their monitor. So when you're going around the office, you can see kind of the color stack of what people's preferences are. And a lot of people put them on their emails because I suppose email communication is a huge part of our lives.
Yeah.
And I think as well, if I'm sure everybody has had a situation where they've received an email that they've not necessarily appreciated, or they thought, oh, look at this tonality or what have you. I'm sure there's a million memes and reels out there about people's email responses. That color wheel at the bottom can highlight maybe, oh, this person's preference is to communicate in this style. So actually it can actually help people interpret what people are actually saying in an email.
Yeah. No, exactly that. And I love that we've just mentioned that, because that is my next question, is why are psychometrics and colour profiling used so widely across every industry?
Well, I would say for me, there is 3 main reasons when people come to me to want to do colour profiling in their business. One would be team cohesion. So when you've got new people joining a team, or you've got a new leader in a team, and you want to do an exercise around, the benefits that everybody brings to a team. So, really helping a team come together.
Yeah.
The other one is for people development. So, development at every level. And then the number one is usually always communication and conflict. So when you've got communication breakdown, when you've got a bit of conflict in the team, I suppose what psychometrics and especially color profiling does is it introduces a common language, and a language that kind of removes emotion, and removes any kind of bubbling, drama underneath. And what it can do is it enables everybody to talk almost through colours in a way, and help everybody understand. So it really reduces that conflict and misunderstanding. So I would say that is, a big reason why it does. I think as well, it increases, and I know it's quite a hot topic as well, it supports like that psychological safety within teams and in groups, because again, it gives you a shared language, but it also gives you an insight into other people in a really kind of safe space. So when you're doing kind of sessions, because you don't, it's not like you do a color profiling and that just gets emailed to everybody in your team. You have kind of a little bit of a group session, and it's that kind of safety of kind of knowing who your team members are, and kind of exploring that together. Obviously, if you don't want to share that, that's down to you. It's your own profile. But I've never really come across anyone that doesn't really want to share their profile, because actually everyone's a bit giddy about wanting to talk about it.
They are.
And it helps diagnose people challenges without like blame. I suppose that conflict one is a big one, but I think the sessions that I like to do the most, and I've got one next week actually, is really just about that coaching and that leadership development and that development within a team and that personal development. When you tie psychometrics development, it's super exciting.
No, I do like that. That makes a lot of sense. So I think, in terms of when there's a change program or there's some sort of change in the team, color profiling is really good, because then it gives people that base level understanding of, where we're starting from. And then I like that you brought in as well, that common language, because I'm part of a mastermind of like over 100 people. And when we start in that, I didn't realize it was color profiling at the time. They've got their own version of it. So we talk about being a diamond or a heart or a club or a spade. Same thing, but different labels. And everyone loves telling each other, well, I'm a big club. Like, I'm not a club, by the way, just to be clear about that. Not a club in the slightest, as you know. Sorry, no, you don't know. That's blue. So I am not a club in the slightest. But it is interesting to hear that common language, because then you're able to identify with each other what's going on, again, at that base level, like why things are happening.
Yeah, and I think there's loads of psychometrics out there, like you just said. And to be honest, like when it comes to behavior, communication, preferences around that, they're usually all based on the Jung model. And they just translate them and either put a color towards it, or a club or a spade or an animal. There's all different versions out there. But they're all kind of linked back to a similar way. So you might have done some version of a color profiling in the class, but in a different formation.
It's interesting that different people rebrand it into their own, animals or decks of cards. Like from a marketing perspective, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. They've rebranded it. Now it's theirs. It's not something else that anyone else offers.
Yeah, I've probably done about 10 different psychometrics in my lifetime, and the version that I use, I find it's not only economical for businesses, but it's also it's really easy to use. Like I said before, I just feel like sometimes there's a barrier to entry with psychometrics because they make it too complicated for people to understand.
Yeah, I like that. So let's talk about that, because when you talk about that barrier to entry, that cost, etc., how does color profiling help teams and organizations perform better? Like, why should they do this? What's the return on investment? HR expert. If you're tired of not knowing where your next client is coming from, or you want a simple, predictable way to generate leads whenever you need them, then join me on December 2nd for a free live event. You'll discover a straightforward system that quietly brings you leads and clients in the background so you can get on with the work and life you actually enjoy. Grab your free ticket using the link in the show notes, or head on over to my LinkedIn. I'll see you there.
Well, I mean, if we talk about team cohesion, if we go back to the three things that most people use it for. So team cohesion, obviously you are you're going to form that team much quicker. You're going to build a faster rapport, that team building, without having to do endless team building days or go through different kind of styles of meetings. You can do a color profiling activity or session in 2.5, 3 hours. So it can be part of a strategy day, it can be part of a team building day, or part of just a team meeting, whatever it is. I do them at all different things. You can even do them online, rather than just, getting them all together. So I think it's really good, a quick way to bring people together. And as we know, like a team that is working together more efficiently, they're going to be more productive, they're going to turn around that work more quickly. And then as well, a team that's more cohesive, they're going to have less conflict, they're going to have less drama going on, there's going to be less little kind of little things in the background that's slowing down productivity or causing drama for other departments. So I think it just helps.
That is such a pain in the ass to deal with. Just to quickly touch on that, I don't think that people realize, like, that phrase "stitch in time saves nine" comes to mind. Like, if you can avoid conflict, god damn, grievances take so much time to deal with, and they are so stressful. Ugh. I hate just such a pain in the arse when I worked in HR. So if you can avoid them, like, people listening along to this, you work in HR, you know this, and any managers, senior managers, etc., they know, right? It's just such a drain. If you can avoid that, and color profiling obviously helps with that.
Yeah, and then I think also using color profiling. So I worked for a business once that actually color profiled every single person at recruitment stage.
Nice.
Now, we didn't, I know some businesses use it. For me personally, I don't feel like you should use psychometrics at a recruitment stage for kind of a yes, no, and whether this person should be hired. However, it can be helpful when you are wanting to create a good team mix, because you don't want a heavily weighted team, maybe
it's a really good point,
a certain preference. So it could be that, do you know what, actually, that there is a bit of blue energy or green energy that's missing from this team to kind of make it a really cohesive and really balanced team. So you could potentially use color profiling at recruitment stage to help you with those decisions if there are any behaviors or communication styles that are missing from your team. Like I said, I think it's got to be part of the process. It can't be like the whole process, but it can be helpful. And then once you've used it, I think it really helps to onboard new managers quickly. You're using we used to use it at like team induction level, or manager induction level. So you're kind of almost bringing in self-development and self-awareness from day one. And then also, because you're doing it at that level, you're going into a team when everyone else has done it. So everybody, can share their color language together. And with that, obviously, it does help with engagement. As we know, you develop people, you invest in people, it's going to lead to higher engagement, which ultimately is going to lead to higher retention. So, you do those elements to obviously, get your return on investment, reduce your cost, reduce your spend from a recruitment level. And I think, like we discussed before, whether it's emails, whether it's in the office, whether it's just having that shared language, it just helps with communication, internal comms. There is not one HR professional that is not dealing with dramas with internal comms. It is the nightmare of, have you got an app? Is everybody on the WhatsApp? If you've got drama on email, if you can sort your internal comms out, I truly believe that comms equals culture. You can't have a good culture without good comms, So I think actually, if color profiling can help all those things, and like I said, relatively, it's a kind of low entry cost. It's not too much outlay, and I think what you get back in return is way more than you would put out. And like we said, businesses love to put a plaster on things, and actually doing something like this, it can actually speed up fixing the actual problem rather than just wanting to gloss over the surface.
Yeah, 100%. So I think what I want to talk about next is when it's happened in reality, that colour profiling, because you and I have done this. And it's been really interesting to work, with you closely these past few weeks, because I bring my energy to it and I lack the blue, the club, whatever you want to call it, the blue. And you've really been able to help me with that. So in terms of that team cohesiveness and bringing out the best in each other, like I don't have any of it. We're going to talk about this in a second. I don't have any blue. There's no planning going on for me, but you're able to help me with that. And as a team, that means that we can achieve more, because if we were in an organization together, right? Let's say, for example, there were 5, 6 of us, whatever, and we were all yellows like I am, then we wouldn't get as much done, because there'd be no blue to lead us, there'd be no red, there'd be less green, etc. So yeah, for me, if you want a good team, if you want that moving forward in the right direction, color profiling is a no-brainer. Like it's been invaluable as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say, because it's probably a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, is that nobody is our color. Everybody is a blend of all colors. So I don't want anybody to listen to this or to go away from thinking like, oh, you're being pigeonholed into a color or a couple of colors. That is not the case. Like, the whole purpose of this is demonstrated, or it's shown on a wheel, because you are a blend of all these colors. And even if a graph or the color wheel shows that you have limited or even no color part of that in your makeup, that does not mean that you can't use any of your blue preference, for example, Nick, because about your profile came out that naturally the blue preference wasn't something, it was 0 on your graph.
It was 0.
Now, that does not mean that you cannot use that green preference or that blue preference, or that blue communication part of your your makeup. It just means that to use that blue energy, or to do we were talking the other day, wasn't it, about getting your head in the right space to work on a bit of detail, because detail usually falls into that blue energy area. And because it's going to kind of take a lot of energy for you to use that part of your brain, or to use that part of your style. So again, like, I think it's really important just to say that everybody is a blend and everybody can use every part. But yes, I think looking at our profiles, I think probably one of the main reasons maybe we continued our conversation was because we realized that we were almost opposites. You brought quite a lot of yellow energy to the table. I brought quite a lot of blue energy to the table, which naturally sit across from each other on the color wheel. So it means they are psychological opposites. So from a work balance point of view, like you just said, it's really helpful, because you know that the person you're working with is literally filling in the gaps to your kind of way of working. And if you're in business, or again, like I've done a lot of sessions with co-founders of businesses, and co-founders of businesses that have opposite color preferences work really well together. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's usually a fair few disagreements along the way, because they are psychologically opposite. So the way that you approach a problem, a conversation, or what's it called, is going to be very different. However, when it comes to solving a problem or working through a business idea or anything like that, you are coming at it from different angles, so it becomes a much more balanced approach. So yeah, I think when we were looking through our profiles, it was quite interesting to see.
Yeah. Oh, you were high on the blue, which I have, like, naturally, because it was interesting. We looked at mine. My natural brain had 0 blue, but then I had to, as I've gotten older, because it was the adapted, right? Was that the right way?
Yeah. So there's two graphs on the reports that we use. There is your adaptive and there's your natural. So your adaptive is 85% of, how you present yourself on a daily life, what people see you work, how you are with your family, etc. That's who you are really. And then like your natural, shall we say, is your core. And that usually only shows itself when your brain can't kind of adapt itself to not how it thinks it should be, but what is kind of needed from it on a day-to-day life. So the natural shows kind of how you might act in those periods of stress or periods of tiredness when, again, like I said, your brain can't adapt itself as easily. So you normally find that they can be quite different. You can also find that they can be polar opposite. You can be one way adaptively and one way naturally. And normally when you do these reports, I've probably done my report maybe like 5 or 6 times.
Really?
Yeah, I probably do it once a year because it does change. So when I first did this report, probably, gosh, it must be my first report, I probably did about 2017, 2018. My green was probably my primary colour.
Wow.
And I had no red in my profile. And now actually red is quite high. And my green has come down a lot in my adaptive. And I suppose what that shows is my brain has had to adapt as well to how my job has changed or my career has changed or what is needed from my day-to-day life. So and this is where we refer back to, like, you can't just pigeonhole yourself into a color quadrant, because your adaptive graph will change over time depending on what the external factors are needed from you. Your natural might not change as much because that is the core of you, but your adaptive will.
No, I like that. I think it was really interesting to get that insight into who we both are and what makes us up. But I think you're right as well in terms of, like, we definitely change over time and our experiences, and we certainly shouldn't try and pigeonhole ourselves. But yeah, it was really interesting to get that report as well, not just the colours, but like that extensive report afterwards, and then highlighting the different bits that are really associated with and crossing things out. That was
it's a very interactive report. Like I said, it's very easy to read. There's a bit of length to it. I think it's about 15 pages long, but it's not dense text.
No,
it's not. What's it called? It just goes through communication. It goes through what the preferences work for you. There's the profile bit, which is on the first page, and that what I usually call like the stalker page, where you're reading it and you're looking over your shoulder thinking, how does somebody know this about me in so much depth? Because you're only asked about 15 questions, and it's quite crazy how it can pull all this data and come up with quite a kind of specific kind of makeup of who you are as a person. And I would say that most people find that 85% resonates. There's always going to be some bits that maybe doesn't resonate with you, and that's fine. But yeah, it's a super helpful report.
Definitely. And I think like you said, there were some bits that I read and I thought that's not accurate, but you can cross them out or whatever, and it's just a bit more of a guide to get some insight. Is, like you say, it's not there to give you this absolute roadmap to how to manage situations. It's a bit of a guide, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So summarize it for us, because we're going to wrap up. But why should this audience listening along, HR consultants, fellow business owners, why should they care about colour profiling?
I think for HR professionals, it's a really good tool to have in your artillery. It's a really good service to offer. It really can help advise like clients better. I think for me personally, even without doing the report, because I kind of have the knowledge in my head, I'm constantly looking at behaviour or ways of communication when I meet somebody for the first time to kind of figure out in my head, oh, I think this person might have a little bit more X energy. So therefore I can tailor my communication style or how I present information. Because I know that if I would sometimes, for me personally, presenting information, I can throw the kitchen sink in and like write a 20-page document because I love detail. But if I'm speaking to somebody that maybe doesn't love that, I might have to trim it down because otherwise I'm not going to get my point across as well. Like I said,
I love that you think about things when you meet someone, because I'm just excited to meet them.
I think as well, like it's really good for buy-in. It really helps with stakeholder, stakeholder buy-in. I think a lot of times I offer a report for free to maybe like the person that's deciding whether colour profile is for them or for their business, and actually when they see it just on their own profile, they get a bit excited and they want to kind of share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good for that. And I think because you can show the return on investment quite easily, and because it's not super expensive, you're talking about, depending on your group size, you can, you've really got a charge of anywhere from £500 to, $4,000 or £5,000, depending on the group size. And if you wanted to do it for a whole business, there's good discounted rates for buying the individual reports, and the individual reports aren't too expensive. So you can really show that return on kind of measuring that team cohesion, a conflict, like we said, the drama that comes from conflict and the impact it has on people teams and the time it has on HR departments and the potential risk it has going to things like tribunals. And we know tribunals are becoming more and more prevalent, and we've got all the changes next year in the Employment Rights Bill, so communication is super at the key of 99 of all issues that arise in businesses. So having that and that tool to help businesses deal with that is super helpful. And like we said, from that personal development, that team development, and supporting retention and developing your people into that internal succession and pipeline is super helpful. So I think, for a HR consultant, it's great to have the knowledge yourself. It's great to understand yourself. If you do not do anything, just get a report yourself to understand yourself. Because actually, when you're working on your own, and sometimes you have to be a self-starter, or you have to, you're sat in the home office and you're not quite sure why certain aspects of what you do are either draining you more or you're actively avoiding certain points of work. Actually just doing one and kind of seeing yourself on the screen can be helpful. But then I think if you can get qualified, and have the ability to issue reports and hold these, development sessions or communication sessions, then it's a good stream of income, and to be honest, holding those sessions, once you get into your groove of doing them, and obviously you'll always have to amend and make it business specific based on their required outcomes or objectives of holding that session, but there's a lot of tools that you can build from, and therefore it's not actually that much work that you have to put in after you've done 3 or 4 of them, because you already know what usually everyone's trying to solve, and you spend a few hours adapting it for your client, and then you obviously have to facilitate the day or the session. But it's much easier than writing a 10-page proposal or writing loads of policies.
I love that. I think just to summarize what you're saying there as well, from a marketing and sales perspective, having this service on your website really helps your clients, your potential clients, understand what it is and why they should have it, and that it is an option. And as well as you as a service provider, as a HR consultant, when you are faced with a situation, with one of your clients that can be not so much resolved, but stitching time saves 9, etc. What we've talked about, if you're able to offer this as part of your proposal, as part of your retainers, you are adding value to your clients, which then gets fed back. Then they send you positive testimonials. They refer you to their friends and family. They're like, oh my God, I've been working with Stephanie and she did this color profiling. It was amazing. You've got to check this out. And they send you over. Like, it's an invaluable service that can be done very, very quickly, very, very succinctly, and people get a lot of benefit from it. So there you go. That's the summary.
No, definitely. And it, like you said, it is great for referrals because people always talk about it. They speak to their peers in other businesses, and like you said, say that they did a great color profiling session, and you do get quite a good amount of referrals and repeat business from it.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, like you said, people do want to tell everyone what colour. I haven't shut up about being a yellow for a while now. Anyway, Tom, speaking of all this marketing and sales, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and say, hey, Tom, I heard you on the next podcast, I want some colour profiling, I want to be able to offer this to my services, to my clients, I want to be able to put this on my website, set up some sort of partnership with you, perhaps, whatever it is, however they want to exploit this opportunity and leverage it for themselves, for their clients, how do they get in touch with you? What are the next steps?
Well, obviously you can find me on LinkedIn, Tom Vivace, or search for Viva People, and we'll also pop a link to my website on the podcast and a bit of information of what maybe people can look into. And yeah, just reach out to me. I can point you in the right direction to either qualify yourself or I can help you maybe issue a report for you or potentially help some of your clients.
Love it. Excellent. Well, there you have it, folks. Color profiling, the wonderful service you can add to your arsenal of services to add value to your clients, to add value to yourself, to your world. Tom's on LinkedIn, and as he says, his website will be linked in the show notes. So hopefully it's something you consider. In the meantime, thank you for listening along. Thank you for joining us, Tom. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, my pleasure. And hopefully for those listening along, you found this useful and insightful. And so, yeah, thank you for listening along. And in the meantime, as ever, get marketing. Because without marketing, there's no sales. And without sales, there's no business. So get marketing. Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, then please consider taking a minute to help us grow by sharing the episode with a friend or colleague, or by leaving a positive review on podchase.com. And make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes if you haven't done so already. I've been your host, Nick Kaminsky, and if you've got any questions or you want to know more about today's topic, then feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be delighted to hear from you. See you next time.